Hi there, I'm Shannon and I'm a college professor in psychology, and I want to tell you about a really interesting case I've been telling my students about this week. It's a case of a patient with a specific phobia. So here's the deal. So the patient is in his early 20s. He presents to the clinician because his wife has had enough. She has a baby on the way and she's like, I'm going to divorce you unless you get help. So here's what's happening. He is afraid of getting sick. He is afraid he's going to develop an allergy. That kind of started a few years ago when he was in jail for a DUI. We'll get back to that. And then it kind of started like snowballing, right? So he was afraid he was going to like get sick from the food in jail, but then he's like, oh, I'm going to develop an allergy. So he starts avoiding all kinds of foods. And then he's afraid that whenever he's going to drive, he's going to get sick. So he has to like be close to an emergency room at any point, to the point where like he's not traveling like 5 miles outside of his home base. And it's really starting to, kind of impede his daily living. So the clinician starts with exposure therapy, which is usually the typical course of therapy for things like phobias. Doesn't work. And so they start with something called narrative therapy, and they're trying to kind of get to the root of the problem. Well, come to find out, the patient's parents were both alcoholics, and he had a very tumultuous childhood where he was like the peacemaker in his family. He had a younger sister, and whenever his parents would fight, they were physically kind of fighting with each other. He had to step in and like be the conflict resolution person, and he had never really dealt with that. And so what happened is that he took all that anxiety that he had, and it kind of like transferred to almost like this very concrete thing. He's like, okay, I'm feeling really anxious, but I'm gonna feel anxious about something else. And so until the psychologist did this like course in narrative therapy, he wasn't really showing any progress. But by the end, it was like completely like dissipated. His symptoms really went down. His baby was born. His wife stayed with him. It was like all these really wonderful outcomes. So moral of the story, people have specific phobias, right? Sometimes what we see is that a person will start with one specific phobia and then they'll start kind of developing other specific phobias. I read a stat in the research article that said that 75% of patients who have one specific phobia will develop something else. So kind of interesting point. Thanks for listening.